What is up, everybody? Welcome to DFS by the Numbers. These are my full card breakdown and predictions for UFC 312. We have Dricus Du Plessis going against Strickland 2. And yeah, we're right back at it here for a pay-per-view card. And yeah, a lot of people are crapping on this card. $70 to watch Taliesin, Teixeira, Justin Tafa. You got to pay $70 to watch Jimmy Crute, Rodolfo Bellato. And yeah, I mean, maybe not the most name value on the pay-per-view card, but I looked into these fights and I'm like, dang, I feel like if you're a fan of fun fights, if you're a fan of violence, I think people are going to really enjoy this card. I think this has potential to be one of the more violent cards of the year. I think the matchmaking is very awesome for this card. So yeah, I'm actually really looking forward to it. Looking forward to breaking it all down. Can't wait to talk some fights. Before we get into it all, if you guys could please do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and then also leave me a comment. All three of those things go a very long way. If you guys want to support me more, or if you want extra content, check out dfsbythenumbers.com. That's where you'll find all my stats, articles, early bets, DraftKings content, prize picks content, just a ton going on there. Check it out at dfsbythenumbers.com. And then also check out Prize Picks. Right now, if you go to Prize Picks and use code DFSBTN, you'll get $50 instantly on your first $5 lineup. Whether it wins or loses, you'll get $50 instantly into your Prize Picks account. Use that code DFSBTN. And then also check out the free square Patrick Mahomes to get 1 passing yard in the Super Bowl. If you haven't gotten in on it yet, get in on it. It's a free square. Take advantage of that. And then other than that, since this is a pay-per-view card, going to be doing the significant strike contest, $25 to first. Whoever is closest gets it. If there's a tie, the tiebreaker goes to the person that commented first. Comment down those significant strikes. And yeah, between Dricus and Strickland. So comment down your significant strike predictions, and whoever gets closest, $25 to first. With all that out of the way, we have a lot of fights to talk about, so I say we get right into it, and we're going to start with the first fight on the card, and we're kicking it off with a banger. We got Hung Sung Park going against Nyamjargal, Tumendemberel. We got Hung Sung Park, 29 years old, 5'7" with a 66-inch reach, and 9-0, and 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Nyamjargal, Tumendemberel, he is 26 years old, 5'7" with a 71-inch reach, 8-1, and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. We'll take a look at the odds. We have Hung Sung Park opened up minus 300. He's currently sitting as a minus 220 favorite. And then Tumendemberel opened up plus 250, currently sitting as a plus 185 underdog. So we haven't seen Hung Sung Park in a while. The last time we saw him, I think, was like late 2023 against Shannon Ross, where he knocked him out. Prior to that, he got a third-round submission win against Sung Guk Choi. So I think it's been like a little over a year since we've seen Hung Sung Park in there. And yeah, I went back and watched a lot of this guy, and I was actually really impressed. You know, the Shannon Ross fight, it's whatever, it's Shannon Ross. A gust of wind can knock out Shannon Ross. But, you know, I watched a lot of his fights, and what really impressed me was the grappling. He has very, very slick grappling. This guy is absolutely no joke on the ground. If he gets you down, he will get into dominant positions, and he will tap you out. I was very impressed with that grappling. And I'm looking at this matchup, and Tumendemberel, you know, is a guy that, I don't know, I'm still not completely sold on. I was very, very confident Carlos Hernandez would go out there and make the fight look pretty easy, and that wasn't the case. I did think a lot of that had to do with Carlos Hernandez coming in there with a terrible game plan, and you know, to be honest, you know, Tumendemberel pretty much could have won that fight just based off of big moments, because the striking, you favor Hernandez, but Tumendemberel hurt Carlos Hernandez, I think, in pretty much every single round. So I still have question marks about the grappling of Tumendemberel, though. I have question marks about the takedown defense, the cardio as well. I thought his first fight on the road to UFC was not the best look. He was getting taken down. He was getting controlled. He looked very exhausted in that fight. And I just think if a high-level grappler like Hung Sung Park gets on top of this guy, the fight might be over shortly after. So I like Hung Sung Park to kick it off here. I think he goes out there, gets his fight down to the mat, and eventually finds a sub here. But if Hung Sung Park wants to go out there and trade blows with this guy, I mean, Tumendemberel has a ton of power for the division. So I think it's up to Hung Sung Park to come out there with a great game plan and fight smart. And if he does that, I think he makes it look pretty easy and get a first-round submission. So Hung Sung Park by first-round sub. Next, we got Quillan, Salkilld going against Anshul, Jubli. We got Salkilld, he's 25 years old, 6 foot with a 75-inch reach, 7-1 and 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Jubli, he's 30 years old, 6 foot with a 69-inch reach, 7-1 and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Salkilld opened up minus 250. That is no longer available. It's minus 570 now. Jubli opened up plus 210, currently plus 420. And I think a lot of that has to do with people just very, very, very low on Anshul Jubli at this point. That last fight against Mike Breeden was a terrible look. I went back and watched the fight though, right? And first of all, if you haven't went back and watched that fight, I mean, do it. It was one of the best comebacks and one of the funniest fights I've ever seen. But yeah, Jubli, he won the first 2 rounds. Like, all he had to do was literally not get finished in the third to win. But in the third round, he was literally broken, mentally. I mean, Mike Breeden just started barking at him. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it. And I think at one point, Mike Breeden actually screamed America at Jubli. And then the announcers were like, man, I think Jubli's scared. And he looked terrified. I don't think I've ever seen a fighter look so terrified in there. But yeah, Mike Breeden was barking at him and he finished him. So I think people are very low on Jubli. But we got to remember, Jubli did look pretty good prior to that massive collapse in the third round. And I think Jubli, he's not bad, right? He's not bad. He can wrestle a little bit. He can grapple a little bit. He's a solid striker. The problem is, Salkilld, I think this guy is the real deal. Salkild's going to have a big reach advantage. I think he's going to have a big cardio advantage. And I just have a sneaky suspicion that he's going to have a significant grappling advantage here. Salkilld can get takedowns. We saw him actually get 9 takedowns on his Contender Series fight, and he's a very slick grappler. So with the grappling, the cardio all mixed in, I think that he can go out there, mix in takedowns, compete in the striking, if not win the striking exchanges, but yeah, compete in the striking. But I think he's going to have a big advantage once this fight hits the mat. And yeah, we've seen Jubli quit. We saw him quit against Breeden. We saw him slow down, and if he slows down against Salkilld, I think he's getting finished in the second or third round. So I like Quillan, Salkilld to go out there and kind of cook Jubli and finish him in round 3. So give me Quillan, Salkilld by third round submission. Moving on, we got Kevin Jousset going against Jonathan Micallef. We got Jousset, 31 years old, 6'2" with a 75-inch reach, 10-3 and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Micallef, he's 25 years old, 6 foot with a 77-inch reach, 7-1 and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Jousset opened up minus 260, currently minus 220. Micallef opened up plus 220. He's currently plus 185. So I'm not the biggest fan of Kevin Jousset. It doesn't bring the most exciting style to the table. Does have a judo background, trains with the city kickboxing guys, and what I'll say is he's a very technical striker. He's not going to go out there and wow you, but he's a very technical, he's a good striker, he fights smart, and he'll win fights, he'll win minutes, and I've seen him go 25 minutes before. Kevin Jousset, he's fun, but not the most exciting guy in the world. So yeah, although I'm not too big of a fan of the guy, I do quite like him in this matchup because he's going against Micallef, who, man, this guy's kind of a wild man. I think on the feet, it's one-way traffic. I don't think Jousset has the best striking defense in the world, but Micallef has probably the worst striking defense I think I've ever seen in my entire life. He's kind of a walking punching bag. Just looks uncomfortable on the feet. He'll panic wrestle. I've seen him panic wrestle like the entire fight and eventually get knocked out. And he's going to want to get this fight down to the ground. He's going to try to get this fight down to the ground. I just struggle to believe it's going to be easy at all to take down Jousset. Jousset shows good takedown defense. He's very physically strong. So yeah, I think Micallef really needs to get the fight down to the mat, and I don't really think he does. And if he doesn't, I think it's just going to be target practice here for Jousset across 3 rounds. So I think Jousset wins this fight. I think he wins it by decision. Could even knock out Micallef, but I don't really want to trust Jousset to finish anybody. So yeah, Jousset, I think it's Jousset just jabbing his way to a 3-round decision. Moving on. We have a very fun fight here. We got Cody Steele going against Rongzhu. We got Cody Steele, 29 years old, 5'9" with a 71-inch reach, 7-0 and 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Rongzhu, 24 years old, 5'9" with a 72.5-inch reach, 25-6 and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Cody Steele opened up minus 250, currently minus 205. Rongzhu opened up plus 210, currently plus 175. I'm a big fan of Cody Steele. This is a guy where I remember researching him for the Contender Series, and I'm watching this guy, and it's like, His base is grappling. He's a BJJ black belt, has a ton of grappling matches in the past. He's grappled with guys like Gregory Rodriguez, Phil Rowe, and some other guys we've seen in the UFC. That's his basis. He's a phenomenal grappler. But you go and watch his fights, and it's like he's not really trying to grapple that much. But what he is trying to do is take his opponent's heads off, and he has done exactly that. Cody Steele, his striking has really came a long way, and it's improved a lot. Like, you go back and watch Cody Steele when he first got into MMA, the striking's not great, kind of looks a little uncomfortable. Nowadays, though, he's going out there and he's knocking fools out. We saw in his Contender Series fight just a phenomenal display of just breaking somebody down. And I love when fighters do that. They just break him down, mix it to the body, and he finished Chasen Blair in that second round with a nice body shot. And that's what he does. He's going to be ultra aggressive. He's willing to eat one to give one, and he has a ton of power. So although I like what I see with Steele on the feet for sure, I think it'd be smart. I think it'd be very smart to, hey, let's put that BJJ black belt to use here, Cody Steele, and let's take this guy down, because Rongzhu, I think there's just a massive, massive gap in terms of the grappling between these two. Rongzhu, he's been submitted 4 times in his career. If Cody Steele gets this guy down, like, the fight could very well be over shortly after. My concern, though, is Cody Steele goes out there and does what he's kind of been doing a little bit, because I think he has fallen in love with his hands a little bit, and that's go out there and stand and bang with Rongzhu. If he does that, I still think he can win the fight, but that's kind of giving Rongzhu his only path to victory. But yeah, if he can mix in takedowns here, get to the back, I think he can easily submit Rongzhu in this fight. So yeah, I like Cody Steele here. Rongzhu could be live early on, especially if they stand and bang a little bit, but especially as this fight goes on, whether Steele grapples or not, as this fight goes on, I like the cardio, the pressure of pace of Steele, and we've seen Rongzhu broken before, so I like Cody Steele. I'll take him to win this fight by second round submission. Moving on, we got Aleksandre Topuria going against Colby Thicknesse. We got Topuria, 29 years old, 5'7", 5-1 and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Colby Thicknesse, he's 25 years old, 5'9", with a 70-inch reach, 7-0 and 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Topuria opened at -200. He's currently -515. Colby Thicknesse, he opened up +170. He's currently +390. This fight is wild. This fight is wild to me. So, Aleksandre Topuria, I don't understand I know he's Ilia Topuria's brother, but this has to be the most questionable signing in a very long time. Just a very, very questionable signing to me. The reason being is because Topuria has fought 3 times in the last 10 years. 3 times in the last 10 years against the worst level of competition you will ever see in your life. I mean, this has to be the worst resume I think I've ever seen. Just beating, beat a 3-1 guy, a 1-9 guy, a 7-18 guy, and now he's in the UFC. So, geez, so I don't get the signing, and he's a massive favorite, but at the same time, I feel like they're really trying their best to get him a win here. Like, there's so many bantamweights on the roster, and they're bringing in Colby Thicknesse to try to probably get Topuria a win. But I have concerns, especially when we're talking about laying -515, right? Like, I was going back and watching some Topuria fights, and I was watching his fight against Ivo Ivanov, and it was a horrible look. He looked really good in the first round, but when the second round started, he just had nothing left, and all of his wins come in the first round. He had nothing left. He was completely done, gassed out, and got finished shortly after by knockout. And then I look at the date, and it's like 2015. So what am I supposed to take away from that? This guy never fights, and when he does fight, he fights the worst level of competition imaginable. Colby Thicknesse, he's actually fought guys with the pulse, but his game is pretty much, as soon as the fight starts, he's going to try to take you down. I don't think I've seen this guy land one strike. I think his striking is completely non-existent. I think Topuria can probably knock him out early on. And then I think, in terms of the grappling, Topuria definitely has the edge early, you got to imagine. But if this fight reaches the second round, I really, really worry about Topuria. I really do. Because Colby Thicknesse, this guy has been 15 minutes, and his cardio looks good. I've seen him go the full 15, and he didn't really look even that tired. So, yeah, I guess I gotta pick Topuria just because I think a first-round finish is very, very, very much on the table. I think early on he's going to be very explosive. He's going to have power. He's going to have good grappling. I think he could either get a sub or a knockout here in those first 5 minutes. But if this reaches the second round, I'm highly skeptical on what this guy looks like because we've seen it once and it looked awful, but that was 9 years ago. Other than that, we haven't seen it. And he's barely fought. So I'm going to take Aleksandre Topuria to win this fight by first-round knockout. And should be an interesting one. But I think somebody's going to get completely served in this one. So I'm looking forward to it. Weird fight, but it is what it is. Next, we got Wang going against Bruna, Brazil. We got Wang, 32 years old, 5'6", with a 66.5-inch reach, 6-1 and 4-1. In her last 5 fights, my bad. Bruna, Brazil, 31 years old, 5'6", with a 65.5-inch reach, 10-4, and 3-2 in her last 5 fights. We'll take a look at the odds. Wang opened up minus 325. She's currently minus 515. Bruna, Brazil opened up plus 275, currently plus 390. I will not be laying minus 515 on Wang, especially after she's coming off of losing as a minus 1,000 favorite, but I got to pick her to win here. Bruna, Brazil, she is fighting at the Fighting Nerds gym. I think that's great, and I think she had her best performance to date against Molly McCann in her last fight, right? But now she's coming up a weight class for some reason. I don't quite get that because she's going to be a small flyweight, so I don't understand that. And then you go back and watch Bruna, Brazil, and it's like I do think she is very hittable. She's very low volume in there on the feet. I think in terms of the striking, although I do think Bruna Brazil's a solid striker, and she's shown solid striking. Not really in the UFC, but on the Contender Series she did, and outside the UFC she did. But in the UFC she really hasn't. She's looked very tentative in there. She's looked very patient in there. She doesn't really throw much. I think on the feet it's not even close, to be honest. And I think it's heavily in favor of Wang. I think for Bruna Brazil to have any success whatsoever, she's going to have to grapple here, and that could potentially be a path. But up a weight class, I don't know. What I see happening here is I think Wang probably gets a knockout. I've always questioned the chin of Bruna Brazil. She's been knocked out 3 times, and it just doesn't look like she likes getting hit all that much. She looked very, very uncomfortable in the Denise Gomes fight, and I think she's going to look very uncomfortable here in this fight as well when Wang's landing big shots on her. So I like Wang. Do I like her at minus 515? No, I don't, but I like Wang to win this fight, and I think she finds a knockout. I'll go second round. Wang, second round knockout. Next fight, we have a very fun fight here. We got Slava Borshchev going against Tom Nolan. We got Slava Borshchev, 33 years old, 5'11", with a 69-inch reach, 8-4-1, and 2-2-1 in his last 5 fights. Tom Nolan, 24 years old, 6'3", with a 73-inch reach, 8-1, and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. We got Slava opened up minus 150 currently. He's minus 135. Tom Nolan opened up plus 130. He is currently a plus 115 underdog. And yeah, I actually flipped my pick on this one. Initially, I was kind of leaning with Borshchev. Now I'm kind of more on the Nolan side. It's hard to be confident in one side or another in this fight, in my opinion. But I'm gonna go with Nolan here, and here's why. Nolan's going to be 9 years younger. He's going to be the hometown guy, and that's something that we got to kind of mention. These fights are going to be in Australia. Flights to Australia are very, very, very long. Borshchev's gonna have a very long flight, and I think that's something we need to take into account a little bit more. Like we even saw on the Saudi Arabia card a little bit. We saw fighters who did make that long flight to Saudi Arabia and look off. We saw MBS look off. We saw Mike Davis look off, right? And I could see something like that with a 33-year-old Slava Borshchev, that long flight. So yeah, that's something to mention. Tom Nolan's obviously much bigger. He's gonna have a 4-inch height advantage, a 4-inch reach advantage. And I just think this fight should be probably a pick-em, man. I think somebody's getting served here. Both these guys have, Slava's striking defense isn't actually bad at all. Tom Nolan's striking defense is actually the one I'm kind of concerned about. But both guys, I think, are very, very chinny. Very, very chinny. Tom Nolan, he got knocked out by Nicholas Mota, which is that's not the end of the world. Getting knocked out by Nicholas Mota, that's not terrible. But getting dropped by Victor Martinez is terrible. It's very terrible. That's not good. So I really question the chin of Tom Nolan. And then as far as Slava Borshchev, I absolutely question the chin of Slava Borshchev. We saw Slava Borshchev borderline get finished against Nazim Sadikov. I thought Keith Peterson should have stopped the fight. We saw Sadikov land a big shot, wobble Borshchev, and then head kicked him, and then landed some nasty follow-up shot. It looked like Borshchev went unconscious at one point, and then Keith Peterson, I'm not sure if he was drunk or not, just refused to stop the fight. Like, that fight could have and should have probably been stopped. And then Chase Hooper, of all people, drops Slav. I mean, if Chase Hooper's dropping you, what is Tom Nolan going to do, right? So I just think somebody's going to go and get served here. And on top of that, Tom Nolan, if he were to choose to wrestle, he can get takedown just due to the fact that Slava literally has the worst takedown defense in the division. You know, Damir Hadzovic, his takedown defense is awful. It's 38%. Slava's is 33%. That just tells you how bad Slava's takedown defense is. So I think there's a couple reasons to like Nolan at plus money, but I can't trust the guy. I can't trust the chin. But I'll say Tom Nolan wins this fight by second round knockout, but I think somebody's getting served in this one, and I think somebody's getting served very brutally. Moving on to the next fight, we got Gabriel Santos going against Jack Jenkins. We got Gabriel Santos, 28 years old, 5'9", with a 70-inch reach, 11-2, and 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Jack Jenkins, 31 years old, 5'7", with a 68-inch reach, 13-3, and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. We'll take a look at the odds on these two. Gabriel Santos opened at -190, currently -210. Jack Jenkins open up plus 165, currently plus 180. And yeah, I'm a big fan of Gabriel Santos. I think this guy's the real deal. I think this guy's the future. And you look at his record, right, in the UFC. You look at his record, it's 1-2. So I think he's so much better than that record indicates. You know, against Lerone Murphy, he comes in there in enemy territory and making his debut, and he won that fight. He absolutely won that fight. I thought it was pretty clear he won that fight. And if so, that's a phenomenal win. Lerone Murphy's an amazing fighter. So, yeah, even the fact that it was remotely competitive in a split decision, the fact that even happened, like, that's very impressive to me. Beating Lerone Murphy. Because Lerone Murphy, he just beat Dan Ige. He just destroyed Edson Barbosa across 25 minutes. So, yeah, the fact that he was even competitive with Lerone Murphy just shows you where Gabriel Santos is. And then against David Onama, he looks good early, and then eventually gets caught and knocked out in the second round. And then he goes out there and we see just how good this guy is against Yiza, where he just beats the brakes off of him for 3 rounds, almost finishes him in the first round. I'm not sure how he didn't finish him in that first round with that front kick. But yeah, Gabriel Santos, I think, is the real deal. I think is very well-rounded, has really good striking, a lot of power, BJJ black belt. He can wrestle as well. And he's going against Jack Jenkins, who I think Jack Jenkins is good as well. I think Jack Jenkins is well-rounded. But I do think there's going to be a big difference in terms of the power. I think Santos has more power, and I think the big difference is also going to be the ground game. We saw Jack Jenkins taken down and controlled by Jamal Emmers for a full round. I did not like what I saw there. He was taken down in the third by Emmers, and Emmers controlled him for the full third round pretty much. Like, I think Santos can probably do the same thing, take down Jenkins. I think he's going to have a big advantage in terms of the grappling and, either burn up the clock or maybe even get a sub. Jack Jenkins has been subbed twice in his career, but I'll say that, Santos, I think Santos probably wins a decision here. The striking exchanges should be fun, should be competitive. I do favor Santos there, but I think he's going to have a solid advantage on the ground with the wrestling, the grappling. So I'm going to say Gabriel Santos wins a decision here in what should be a fun fight. Next fight, we have Jake Matthews going against Francisco Prado. We got Jake Matthews, 30 years old, 5'11", with a 73-inch reach, 20-7 and 2-3 in his last 5 fights. Francisco Prado, 22 years old, 5'10", with a 69-inch reach, 12-2 and 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Jake Matthews, he opened up -150. He's currently -195. Francisco Prado opened up +130. He's currently +170. And, for me, I see Prado like a very popular bet this week. I don't know what to think of this guy. He is only 22 years old, so he still could be making improvements, but just with the striking, he wings big shots, and maybe he's live to clip Jake Matthews here, but I think Jake Matthews is absolutely the more technical striker, and then I just feel like Jake Matthews just has a big advantage on the ground. We saw Jamie Malarkey go out there and ragdoll Francisco Prado easily, just take him down, and Prado accepted bottom position in that fight. Jake Matthews, BJJ black belt, I think he can definitely get takedowns if he wants them. And then on top of that, Prado, for some reason, I don't get it. I really don't get it. Prado is coming up a weight class. He's going from lightweight to welterweight. That doesn't make a ton of sense because he didn't even look like a big lightweight. So what's he doing? Like, he's going to be a very undersized welterweight, and undersized in this matchup as well. He's going to be at a height and reach disadvantage. So I feel like if you're Matthews, use that size, get the fight down to the ground. We saw, lightweight Jamie Mullarkey do it. I think Matthews can kind of do the same thing. I think the striking exchanges will be competitive. I think Matthews maybe a little higher volume, where Prado the bigger shots. But yeah, I think Matthews can mix in those takedowns, win minutes. Another thing we got to mention, Prado coming from Argentina all the way to Australia. I think that's something to absolutely mention. And then we also have, Jake Matthews being the hometown guy. If the fight's close, potentially goes to him. The judges, they're crooked, corrupt. We see that time and time again. So yeah, I think Jake Matthews wins this fight. The only problem with Jake Matthews is he's just very inconsistent. This is going to be his 21st UFC fight, which is insane. But, sometimes Jake Matthews looks like $1 million. Sometimes he looks like he doesn't belong in there. So I guess it comes down to which version of Matthews shows up. But yeah, since it is in Australia, I think he'll be fine. So yeah, give me Matthews to win I think probably a competitive decision. Moving on to the next fight, we have Rodolfo Bellato going against the return of Jimmy Crute. We got Rodolfo Bellato, 29 years old, 6'3", with a 77.5-inch reach, 12-2, and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Jimmy Crute, 28 years old, 6'2", with a 74-inch reach, 12-4-1, and 3-3-1 in his last 5 fights. Rodolfo Bellato opened up minus 300, currently minus 170. Jimmy Crute opened up plus 240, currently plus 145. So Jimmy Crute is making his big return here. Jimmy Crute actually retired. He actually retired. After the Alonzo Menafield loss, he put his gloves down and said, "I'm done. I just got subbed by Alonzo Menafield. I can't keep fighting after that." I mean, it was a horrible look. And he's on a 4-fight skid, right? I think a lot of people are very low on Jimmy Crute, which you probably should be. I mean, he hasn't won a fight since 2020 against Modestas Bukauskas. But what I'll say about Jimmy Crute, this guy has costed me a lot of money, right? Jimmy Crute is, or was, probably still is. I mean, he's only 28, right? Very skilled. I think he has all the skills. I think his striking's not bad. Has a ton of power. He showcased that power against Modestas Bukauskas, a brutal knockout win against Sam Alvey. And he also has phenomenal wrestling. BJJ black belt. He's able to get the fight down to the ground. A phenomenal submission game. The problem with Jimmy Crute has always been the fight IQ. He has some of the worst fight IQ in the game. Against Jamal Hill and Anthony Smith, instead of trying to take them down, he goes out there and tries to strike with them, and he gets finished in the first round of both those fights, right? So, yeah, the fight IQ of Jimmy Crute is always a concern. The chin of Jimmy Crute is always a concern, but I think the skills are there. I truly believe that. I think there's a reason why this guy's coming back, because, you shouldn't retire at 27, 28 years old, right? And he said it himself. It's like, He wants to come back because he thinks he still has. He actually thinks that he's better now than he was a couple years ago. So we'll see. But yeah, this is a fight where I don't know how anybody can trust either one of these guys. I think this fight should be a straight pick'em because we talk about Jimmy Crute's poor chin. I mean, Bellato's chin's probably worse. I don't know if anybody remembers the Ihor Potieria fight, but Ihor Potieria borderline finished Bellato. Like, that fight probably should have been stopped. And I went back and watched that fight, and it's like Ihor Potieria is beating the crap out of Bellato. Ihor Potieria wins the first round. Bellato's wobbling across the cage. In the second round, Bellato's doing the chicken dance. Potieria gets on top, and it looks like Bellato goes unconscious, with the ground and pound. And the ref could have stopped the fight. He was getting close to stop the fight. And then Ihor Potieria gassed out. Bellato reversed him and got the win, but that fight could have been stopped. Like, Bellato could be coming off of a loss to Ihor Potieria, which is so much worse than coming off of a loss to Jamal Hill or Anthony Smith or Alonzo Menafield. And Bellato's been knocked out in both of his losses, both by Vitor Petrino. So yeah, I just think the chin of both guys very questionable. Both guys can wrestle. Both guys can grapple, BJJ black belts. But yeah, I think it's a coin flip. These odds, I think it's more so Jimmy Crute in terms of like where's he at mentally, where's the motivation. But skill for skill, I think Jimmy Crute's a lot more skilled than Bellato. I truly believe that. Just the fight IQ and Just the mental is kind of the big concern. But I'm going to take Crute here. I'm going to take Crute to win this fight by first-round knockout. I think it could look a little bit like the Modestas fight, where he just brutally knocked him out. We've seen Bellato brutally knocked out many times. We've seen him hurt many times. We've seen him wobbled many times. So yeah, I'm going to say Crute with the first-round KO. So yeah, Jimmy Crute, first-round knockout. Welcome back. Moving on. We got Taliesin Teixeira going against Justin Tafa. We got Teixeira, 25 years old, 6'7", with an 83-inch reach, 7-0, and 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Justin Tafa, 31 years old, 6 foot, with a 74-inch reach, 7-4, and 3-1 and 1 no contest in his last 5 fights. Taliesin opened up minus 250, currently minus 125. Justin Tafa opened up plus 210, currently plus 105. And yeah, I mean, this fight, it probably should be lined very closely, and the reason being is these two are going to go out there and stand and bang, literally. So Taliesin Teixeira, as you can see, this guy is a freak, 6'7". He's going to have a 7-inch height advantage, 83-inch reach. He's going to have a 9-inch reach advantage. But the problem with Teixeira, the problem I have with Teixeira is he went out there on Contender Series and he fought a guy named Arthur Lopez, who is a light heavyweight. And Arthur Lopez, he hadn't fought in a while, and Arthur Lopez, his only loss came by sub. And I was thinking to myself, like, Teixeira, this guy has a sub on his record. He's a BJJ black belt. I think Teixeira could potentially take down Arthur Lopez. That's his weakness. He got subbed and his only loss, but in his Contender Series fight, that was not in the books at all. Taliesin Teixeira went out there and stood and banged with Arthur Lopez. And he was getting hit with some big shots. He was getting hit clean. His striking defense looked awful. He was doing the whole eat one to give one type thing, and that's not something you can really do at heavyweight. Had that tall man's defense. Arthur Lopez, if he had any power, probably knocked him out. And Teixeira was like minus 1,000 in that fight, and Arthur Lopez was landing some bombs on the dude. So, I don't know. I mean, if Teixeira comes out there and fights the way he did against Arthur Lopez, I think there's a chance he's getting sparked. But it's obvious, somebody's getting sparked here. Somebody's getting knocked out in the first round. Both these guys want to do the exact same thing. This is not going to be a boring, Sergey Pavlovich, Jairzinho Rozenstruik fight. Both these guys want to do the same exact thing, which is stand in the middle and bang until one man falls. And in a fight like that, flip a coin. I'm going Tafa here. I'm going with the dog and Tafa. I did not like what I saw in terms of the strike and defense, the tall man's defense of Teixeira. I think Tafa has an opportunity here to land a big shot and get the first round knockout, but yeah, somebody's getting served here, and somebody might have to go to the hospital after this one because both these guys hit like trucks. But yeah, give me Justin Tafa by first round KO. Moving on to the co-main event, it is Tatiana Suarez going against Zhang Wei Li. We got Tatiana Suarez, 34 years old, 5'5", with a 66-inch reach, 10-0 and 5-0 in her last 5 fights. Zhang Wei Li, 35 years old, 5'4", with a 63-inch reach, 25-3 and 4-1 in her last 5 fights. We'll take a look at the odds. We got Zhang Wei Li open at minus 250. The odds have flipped. She's now a dog, plus 105. Tatiana Suarez opened up plus 210. She's currently a favorite, minus 125, and I expect that line to keep growing in favor of Tatiana. So this is a fight that I absolutely love, but at the same time I absolutely hate because I have to pick against one of these fighters. I'm a big fan of both fighters here. Zhang Wei Li, one of the best, if not the best strawweight of all time. She's so dominant, good everywhere, tons of power, solid grappling. The grapplings came a long way. Tatiana Suarez, I always felt, and I think everybody's always felt, that she's kind of the dark horse in the division. And I felt that way for years. The problem with Tatiana was, the layoffs. At one point, she had like a 5-year layoff. The injuries, battled a lot of injuries. She's had cancer. I think twice she's had cancer in her life. So she's been dealing with a ton of stuff throughout her career, and she's had trouble making it to the cage. But when she does make it to the cage, we see dominance. Simple as that. When she makes it to the cage, we see absolute dominance. We've seen her run right through Alexa Grasso. We've seen her run right through Carla Esparza. We've seen her run right through Jessica Andrade. We've seen her run right through pretty much everybody she's ever fought, right? So I think I've always thought that she would be champ. I just thought it would happen a very long time ago, but now she's finally getting her opportunity here. And initial thoughts, I was like, Zhang Weili, she's more active. She's been 25 minutes. She has the better striking, but after looking into the fight, went back and saw, Zhang Weili against, Yan Xiaonan, Rose Namajunas, Carla Esparza, and just anytime somebody tries to take down Zhang Weili, they do so, and they do so very easily. Yan Xiaonan took her down with ease. Rose Namajunas took her down with ease. And if both of those fighters are taking you down, like Tatiana Suarez, the takedowns are going to come free here for Tatiana. The question I have and the concern I have with Tatiana is the cardio. She's never been 25 minutes. In some of her fights, it does look like she's kind of slowing down a little bit. Like in the De La Rosa fight, it looked like she was maybe on her way to slowing down a little bit. But yeah, if she doesn't finish Zhang Weili in the first 2.5 rounds, 3 rounds, it could get interesting. But I just feel like, yeah, she's going to take down Zhang Weili. And when she does, I just think there's going to be a levels difference in the grappling. And I think Zhang Weili is a good grappler. I think she's a much improved grappler. But I just think there's going to be a levels difference. Tatiana Suarez, incredible submission game. She's been grappling for forever at this point. So I'm going to say Tatiana gets it done here. I'm going to say she gets it done by second round submission. I think she's going to lock something up at some point. Whether it's a guillotine, whether it's a darce, I think she finds the neck of Zhang Weili and gets a second round sub. Like I said, if this fight gets extended, it's going to get interesting. But I'll say Tatiana gets her out of there early. So give me Tatiana Suarez to win this fight. I'll take her to win this fight by second round submission. And now we have the main event. It is Dricus Du Plessis going against Sean Strickland at 2. If you guys have not commented down your significant strikes before this fight, comment down how many significant strikes you think these two are going to combine for the significant strike contest. But yeah, Dricus, 31 years old, 6'1", with a 76-inch reach, 22-2 and 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Sean Strickland, 33 years old, 6'1", with a 76-inch reach, 29-6 and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. We'll take a look at the odds. We have Dricus open up -145, currently -205. Sean Strickland opened up +125, currently +175. I think these odds are wide. I think the opener was a lot more accurate. With that said, though, I went back and watched the Strickland Plessis one. And it was actually the first time I watched it because I don't know what I was doing, but I didn't see their first fight. So I watched it for the first time, and it was a competitive fight. A lot of people thought that Dricus won. A lot of people thought that Strickland won. And for me, I thought that Sean Strickland, clearly won the first round. I thought that Dricus clearly won the second round. I thought that Strickland clearly won the 5th round. And then I thought that Dricus won the 4th round. And I think it all came down to that 3rd round. I think that 3rd round was kind of the swing round where, in terms of the strikes landed, Sean Strickland outlanded him 31-29. But in terms of the optics, Strickland was bleeding on his face. I think that kind of swayed the judges potentially. And on top of that, there's a difference between a Sean Strickland significant strike, right, and a Dricus Du Plessis significant strike. Sean Strickland, throwing the jabs, the teeps, whereas Dricus, he's throwing like a complete wild man. So, yeah, I think it all came down to that 3rd round, and I did give it to Dricus. So, yeah, I scored the fight, 3-2 in favor of Dricus Du Plessis. And since that fight, not much has changed. Not much has changed at all. I think it's going to play out very similar, which, the saying, not 2 fights always don't play out the same. The rematch don't always play out the same, but it's just hard to see this fight going any other way because Strickland literally fights the same in every single fight. Jab, teep, the entire time. So, yeah, I think it's a close fight. I think it's competitive, but Dricus, I think, is going to have obviously the power advantage. I think he's going to be landing the bigger shots. Sean Strickland's going to have the volume advantage. He's going to be landing more in terms of the total numbers. We saw that in the first fight. I think Dricus has all the wrestling upside. He landed 6 takedowns in their first fight. I think that Dricus has all the finish upside as well. So yeah, I think Dricus Du Plessis as a small favorite, the champion. I think it makes sense. Dricus Du Plessis though at -205. I don't really understand that. I think it's going to look a lot closer than that. But yeah, give me Dricus here. I think he's going to win a close and competitive decision in this one once more. And yeah, Dricus by decision. There we have it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you could, do me a big favor, like the video, subscribe to the channel, check out dfsbythenumbers.com. Tons of content on there. It's a great way to support me. and then also comment down those significant strikes for the fight. Be on the lookout for more content, DraftKings content, betting content, live stream on Friday for the final thoughts, and then the best bet live stream on Saturday, 2 hours prior to these prelims. And other than that, best of luck, guys. Should be a fun card. I think it's an underrated card. I think we're going to get some violence, and that's all we can ever ask for. Best of luck, guys, for UFC 312, and we'll talk to you soon. See ya.